All right, this is gonna be episode 1 of the Hijet S110 turbo build. So this is a turbo I'm gonna be using. It's a cheapy eBay turbo. It's a GT15 Garrett turbo clone. Real small, advertised for like ATVs and lawnmowers, so I think it will work good in here. But over this past weekend, I've been kind of messing with it. Started off taking the exhaust off right there, which is right here. And what I have since done is cut that 3-bolt flange that was at the back of the exhaust right there, and tack welded this little 90, which will sit right down here. Just slide it in there. We'll just sit like that, as you can see. I obviously bolted it down. So the turbo will kind of sit right here. I threw this inlet flange, which actually goes right to here. Those, sit together for the turbo. I threw that on there just to see how it was sitting. It was a little crooked, but I'll show you a picture of how that kind of sat. So it doesn't really look too bad. I have no experience doing like a turbo or anything like that before. But it doesn't really seem that difficult, especially on this thing. Really, the hardest part is gonna be the turbo drain, which is right there. That's where the drain will be, which will be sitting like that, meaning the drain, coming down. And the problem with that is, assuming the drain starts like right above here somewhere, there's not a lot of room to bring it down to the oil pan, which is down there. Meaning that it's, the gravity drain is gonna be very slow because there's not, a lot of pitch for that line to drain through, which is a little worrying. Worst comes to worst, I'll bring the turbo out through here, make it kind of sit right here to look pretty cool. But that's worst comes to worst. I kind of want to keep this thing functional still. But I'll show you underneath how it's looking now. All right, so here I am underneath the K truck now. As you can see, this is what I was talking about with this 90 right here. This is that 3-bolt flange. This is your, I guess, exhaust manifold header right here. That's where it kind of bolts up to. And then just throwing a simple 90 on it. And I mean, there's tons of space up here. You know what I mean? There's space for a turbo to sit. I was kind of worried about this wiring right here. Up here, as you can see, this was sitting up in here originally. I just cut those zip ties. I'm gonna, probably zip tie it back here when I'm done, get it out of the way. So that was a concern, but ended up not being a problem. A couple of other things I'm still working on, haven't really thought too much of yet, but I will need to soon, is for the oil feed, which is going to be up here, coming down to the top of the turbo. But for the oil feed, I'm gonna be going hopefully right through there, which is where the pressure sensor sits. I removed it, threw a little tap thing in there, like I guess a splitter to give it an extra port, to run oil out of it. So I'm hoping that's gonna have enough pressure coming out of there to feed the turbo. I know that turbos don't need a lot of oil really, so I'm not too worried about it, but I will need to have that oil line coming from right there, kind of coming down through here, probably wrapping around here, and then going up here to come down right into the turbo. And then the drain will be roughly right here on the turbo, and that's gonna have to go. It's gonna have to go over the tranny somehow, which might be difficult, but it's gonna have to go down this way, come down. This might be a better idea. Can you see that at all? Basically, right here, where the turbo is gonna be, meaning that it's gonna have just the slightest pitch coming down through here. And obviously the pan is super strange on this thing. It's kind of sideways. So I'm hoping that I could just tap into the pan right here. There's nothing important behind this. I'll pull the pan off, and hopefully I could just have the drain right here, have a 90 coming off of it, and just hope that there's enough pitch coming down for that drain to work. Like I said, if not, I'm gonna have to figure something else out, maybe draining into the valve cover, which I'm not hoping to do, but that's the worst comes to worst. Or if that doesn't work, just putting the turbo up above the bed, which will look kind of funky, but it won't be very functional, but it might look cool. So that's kind of the worst comes to worst with that. And this is what I'm thinking for the oil feed. So this is the pressure sensor right here. This was screwed without threads where I was showing you underneath. It was just that. And this is kind of that T I'm talking about. This will screw right up into there. And then I'm thinking I'll just have the pressure sensor on the side, meaning that the most oil will shoot straight through into what will eventually be my oil feed. And the pressure sensor is kind of just sitting on the side, hopefully reading. Not that it's really important on one of these things, I don't think. But hopefully that will put out enough pressure. And then the oil feed, I don't think is too worrying. It'll probably just come up through here somewhere and have a 90 right here and just right down into the turbo, which would be sitting like this right here for the oil feed. All right, so this is kind of what I'm talking about for that turbo drain into the pan kind of idea. This is a AN10 fitting, which I'm still kind of learning about, but basically I'll drill a hole that size into the pan, stick this in there, have a gasket one side, then pan obviously right here, another gasket, and then just tighten it down like that. Won't be any welding. So hopefully this works, but from what I found, I'm gonna need an AN8 of this, which I did order, so I'm waiting on that, which should be here within the next week. And that will basically go from the pan, which will be connected with one of these, and then I'm getting a adapter for AN8 fitting right here, and then it'll just be an AN8 line going all the way across, sitting like right here, hopefully pitching just enough to wiggle through here to get down into the pan down here. And that's kind of the plan with the oil drain. This is still very new to me. I'm not really sure if it's gonna work, but I do think it's a good start. And then everything else is still really up in the air. I'm not too sure what I'm gonna do, assuming this thing could be mounted under the bed right here, like I was kind of thinking. The exhaust side would be pretty easy. I do have the flange for this, so I'll probably, I don't really know what I'm gonna do with the exhaust. I do want it kind of sticking out of back here somewhere, I'm thinking, coming out like through here. Which shouldn't be too hard. It'll probably be super loud at first because I'm probably just gonna throw just a straight pipe temporarily right when I get this thing running, just to make sure the turbo is good. And then I will make some kind of exhaust for it in the future. Then one of the later things I need to do is get this intercooler set up. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do is, if you're familiar with these trucks at all, sometimes there's an AC condenser right there that kind of sits just like this. It'll sit something like that right around here. My truck does have AC, but it's not there. It's underneath the front of the engine, kind of, meaning I do have this blank spot, which would work out super good, meaning this would be coming right through, basically right up top. It'll just be snaked through here and come down right into the intercooler. And then on this side, it'll be coming up, and airbox will be out, going right to there. So that looks super easy for like the whole charge pipe setup. I haven't really thought too much of it, but it does not look complicated. And then somewhere in this whole setup, this would be probably maybe right there, even right here. And that'll be the blow-off valve, which is just this one up here. Just some random cheapie. I'm not sure how problematic this thing's gonna be. It might be gone very, very soon, depending on how bad it is. But bunch of them were sold cheap, good reviews. I figured I'd give it a try. And then this box right here is just all a bunch of just piping, charge pipes and everything. But this turbo, since it's so small, is super weird on this size. But that is a very small size. So I did find this little silicone rubber adapter. Just by throwing a hose clamp on that, it's really snug it up. I don't think it's gonna blur or anything. I mean, that's not on there super good, but it's, you know what I mean, I could move the turbo without it coming right off. So I think if I throw a hose clamp right here, tighten it up super good, maybe buy a good one that will seal. And then I have all this space right here, which this should work with. Grab a piece just to make sure. Fortunately, this does not fit. Slightly too small on this, but I do think I could find a bigger one of these. The hardest part was this small size. So what I can maybe do is find this size to this size, like actual pipe adapter, you know what I mean, just to get it in here and have it come out slightly bigger, and then throw like something like this on here because I know that'll fit, and then have the adapted piece of pipe right there and just hose clamp them both on, and that should work. I know that a turbo car like that, charge piping does like to blow off if it's not sealed nice. But on something this small, I don't really know if that's gonna be an issue, especially with this giant intercooler. I did not expect it to be as big as it is. So, I mean, look at the turbo compared to the intercooler. It's a little overkill, but we'll see. Worst comes to worst, I'll buy like one of the little intercoolers for like I think in a Tri that has a turbo in Japan. I mean, probably like $80 shipped overseas, which sucks, but that's kind of like a worst comes to worst for intercoolers. Really stuff I'm not worried about. It's more of a waiting game really than anything else. But I do think this will work. I'm not too sure how unreliable this truck is going to become. I don't daily drive it, but I do drive this thing probably 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 5 miles each time. Nothing crazy, but I don't want to make this thing just a lawn ornament, you know, something that's just sitting there. So that's kind of what my plan's going to be. Like I said, I'm not sure about a lot of things. A lot of stuff does need to be figured out still, but I do think I'm at a decent starting point. And just so you guys know, I'm not expecting power from this thing. It's a cheap little small turbo. All I want is when I'm going 40 miles an hour up a hill, I want to continue to go 40 miles up a hill. I don't want to lose speed, you know what I mean? So hopefully this turbo will just give me that little bit of extra power that I will need to get up a hill, especially on a 14-inch tire. It does slow down a good amount. So hopefully this little turbo will give me that little extra boost that I need. But yeah, I do think that's where I'm kind of gonna end this. I might mess with this a little bit more today, kind of get it figured out, maybe find some pieces of pipe. But this is basically, I'm probably 6 hours in, including, you know, getting it jacked up and whatever. And I'm not really worried. Some stuff I gotta figure out, a lot I gotta learn, but I do think that this will be successful. I'm guessing, I can't imagine more than 4 more weekends into this thing, but whatever happens, happens. I'll get it done at some point. Really, nothing too scary in there. I gotta figure something with the intake manifold. I gotta get vacuum from it for the blow-off valve, which might be a little difficult, but I mean, I got 1,000 vacuum lines just right here with the manifold right underneath them, so I'll find something. Just got to dig around in there for a little bit. that's really it. I mean, 6 hours in, I do think I got a good amount done. And hopefully next weekend I'll have this elbow bracket completely finished and hopefully get that turbo maybe bolted in next weekend. And then hopefully get those lines done maybe the following weekend or next weekend. The lines are definitely the most intimidating part of this project, is getting those lines figured out, because without doing them, doing them wrong or whatever, they don't work. I'm gonna have to kind of think of this whole bracket. I'm gonna have to refigure out and basically put me back to step one again, which is kind of what I just finished. But that's really it. I'm gonna end this here, and I'll give you guys another video hopefully next weekend of my progress. If there are any questions or anything, let me know for parts or anything if you're trying to follow along. I'll try my best to help you guys out, but yeah, that's weekend 1. Thanks for watching.